I'm recording, so we're good to go.
Right?
Okay, welcome to the Boss Podcast, the best of social selling. This is the podcast that's designed to help you become better at using social for sales and lead generation. Today we have another expert in the house. I'm delighted to welcome Phil Gerbyshak as a guest to our expert series. Phil, hello again.
Hey, Mark, it's great to be with you again.
Yeah, nice to reconnect after quite some time. How are you going?
Really, really good. Everything is great here in Florida. Unfortunately, I'm not in any of the cities. I'm not on the beach yet, but things are really good. Thank you.
Cool. So is it getting close to beach weather for you guys? It must be pretty close.
Absolutely. No, I'm going actually tomorrow. So, yep, going down to Siesta Key Beach, and I'll be there for a couple days and just enjoying it. Yeah, this week it's been in the 90s, so it's beautiful, 90 Fahrenheit, which is pretty warm.
Yeah, that is good. Okay, we're just hitting the middle of winter in down under, so very jealous at this stage, Phil. Phil, you're a social selling superstar. You're also a long-time sales guy. You're a bit of a sales guru. You've been involved in lots of sales skills, delivery, sales training, and that sort of thing for quite some time, haven't you? Do you want to work us through some of your background there? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. So my first sales job, I was selling DSL, so high speed internet before internet was high speed. That was my first sales job out of college. From there, I was a stockbroker. I did that. I've sold software, and I ran my own business for a long time. And about a year ago, I got approached by a company called Vector Solutions to be their VP of sales training. So I've been doing that, and now I get to teach salespeople and sell them on the importance of training and on uh, lifelong learning and on continuous improvement.
Awesome. And I read that you've written 5 books, been on the cover of a bunch of magazines, and you're a true expert in LinkedIn social selling and a specialist in inside sales.
Yeah,
However, I think your biggest feat was being included in my first book with 108 social selling tips ebook. Do you remember that in
of course I
2017?
do. Absolutely. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That was a good time. I can't believe then that's been a while ago, which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, my little book was nowhere near as good as any of yours. So I was just making a joke there.
You're kind. Thank you, my friend.
Mate, before I hit you up for some strategies, mate, I really wanted to say publicly, Phil, there's a small handful of people who I think have forged like the first trail through the forest of LinkedIn and social selling. And you're definitely one of those in my books. Like I think you've helped make it so much easier for everybody else, myself included. So, personally, you've made it much easier for me to understand and implement social. And on behalf of people who are just like me, and there must be hundreds of thousands of people that feel the same way. Can I just say, mate, thanks very much for all that work you did early on? Because I think you started right back in 2010, 2011. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, long time ago, back before LinkedIn was big, when podcasting was just in its infancy, when nobody was using Twitter and Instagram wasn't even a thing.
Yeah, 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 that's right. So, mate, well done. You're a true trailblazer. So I'm stealing that from Salesforce, but hopefully they won't sue me for that. So, mate, let's have a chat today. So, you've got this really interesting topic that I want to explore, or this concept around the 3 H's and the 3 I's in the social space. Can you share with my listeners about that, how that works?
Absolutely, Mark. So let's start with the 3 H's, and it's of the way to be successful as a social seller, really as any type of sales professional today. It starts with being human. We really have to be human. People are not expecting robots; they're expecting your humanity. You need to be vulnerable. You need to be open. You need to ask questions. You need to be interested. You cannot follow a script. It's not to say that you don't have an outline and understand where the conversation might go and that you don't prep. Don't be fooled. That's not what I'm talking about. You don't just wing it. You absolutely have to prepare, but you have to be human. You have to be present for people. You have to listen to them. And you don't just go down a list and ask question after question. You respond to them. You really personalize that conversation. It's really important, whether it's online, whether it's on the phone, whether it's via video or whatever it is, you have to be human. The second
Yeah.
H is about being helpful. You have to really be helpful. If people believe that you can help them and that you demonstrate that you're willing to help them, much like, I appreciate what you said about me, because that's absolutely my goal, Mark. I want to help you. I want to help everyone. It's really important to me. I mean, that's why I share what I do. It's not for me. It's really to serve and to do that. And I really believe that to sell is to serve. So being helpful is the second H. And then the last one is to be humble. And that means not, it doesn't mean that you don't report the news when you do good things. It doesn't mean that you don't talk about the good things that have happened to you. You know, I've certainly had my share of wonderful things that have happened. You know, I was featured in your book. I've written some myself, and I'm certainly, I love that, but I'm humble about it. And by that, I mean, I don't ever think that I'm the greatest. I still have a lot to learn. I still have a long, long journey ahead of me where I can improve, I can get better, whether it's someone who just started with social asking fundamental questions. I don't blow them up. I humbly answer their question. I try to my best to help them. Or whether it's someone that I have, massive loads of respect for that has far surpassed anything that I'm ever done. I'm still humble about that. And I'm humble enough to ask them for help. So those are my three H's. And I think they guide how I sell, and they guide how I live, and they guide how I train.
Wow, I think that's fantastic. There's so many people now talking about authenticity. All this sort of like lots of. There seems to be a real shift in the approach in sales. Yet, I think you've just presented in a really simple way. Like to be human is and helpful is super important. I remember a guy that trained me in sales. He said, "Just look, Mark. Don't try and sell anything. Just try and help people. If you go into the conversation trying to help people achieve what it is that they want to achieve, you'll be significantly more successful." And that's something that I've carried with me. So that resonates very strongly with me. But the human side and the humble side works really, really well too. And humble yet reporting the news. It sort of gives you an opportunity to still be able to share with people when you're lucky enough to have something go your way. That's great. How would that work on social?
So how it works on social. So first, right, the humanity piece. You talk about what you're working on. You show a little bit of how the sausage is made, if you will. You show people, behind the scenes of what's going on, that you're human, that you do things besides just work. Because frankly, Mark, I don't know about you, man, but I do more than just sales training, right? I do more than just social selling. I do more than just what is there. So I try to share some of that interesting stuff, some of the fun stuff, some of the things that maybe people wouldn't know, that humanity. And I personalize again my outreach when I'm prospecting, when I'm teaching my team to prospect, or even when I'm being prospected. I always ask myself, is this from a human? If I was sitting right across the table from them, would I share that on social? Would I ask the question that way? If I wouldn't ask my mom that question, if I wouldn't ask, the person sitting across the table, it's probably not very human. So I probably shouldn't do that. So that's the human piece. The helpful piece,
Yeah.
you answer people's questions. You try to write articles that are helpful. I mean, I wrote a little post this week that got quite a bit of traction about how to change your home feed from top, which is the popular post, to recent, which are the posts that people can actually see at almost as they post. And if I'd have just done that, well, that would have been okay. And that would have been kind of reporting the news and kind of vanilla. But I gave a few examples of how you could actually use that to grow your business. Thus, much more helpful than just, hey, you should change your feed. So that's the helpful piece. And again, the humble piece. It's not that I'm not humble. I think sometimes I'm beyond humble, which is not good either. You have to be willing to report the news. You have to be willing to say, a few months ago, or I got recognized by CrunchBase as one of the top 25 sales leaders to follow. Well, I posted it, and I'm certainly proud of that, but I didn't put it on my profile. Well, shame on me. I didn't report the news long enough that anybody who didn't see it in that exact, basically split second of time, and really it's about 72 hours, 96 hours that a post lives if it gets any traction on LinkedIn. I didn't post it. So one of the things that I know that I need to do, probably after we get done talking today, is go and report more of the news and place it in places so that people can see it later. Not saying I'm the greatest, but just reporting the news and being humble enough to say, hey, you know what? I work hard, and I'm grateful for this recognition, much like I do every time I'm on a podcast. Anytime anybody mentions me, part of being humble is going back and saying thank you. Mark, thank you for this opportunity to be with you, and thank you for having me on the show, and thank you for asking good questions. That's really important to me. So that's how you do those online.
Lovely. When you said you were selected as the top one of the top 25 on Crunchbase, my first thoughts were, yeah, I'm not surprised. So, mate, definitely stick that on your profile. I think that's something that will help reinforce the authority, and I can see why you might think that that's being overly humble, not sharing that. But I think other people would also get some value from that. Going, okay, this guy's been awarded something. That means he's obviously been consistent and producing some good content. Therefore, there's a higher level of trust I can place in that. And so I think you've got a bit of an obligation to everybody else to share that information to support what it is that you're saying, because there's a lot of people saying or sharing content or information that's simply not correct.
Yeah.
So, which is a challenge in the social media space more broadly. And if you're looking for free information, and this is a good challenge for people on LinkedIn, the salespeople, for example, there's so much activity out there. There's so many comments. Not always everything's going to align well with you as a salesperson. Yet, if you've been awarded top 25, that's going to give me a higher level of comfort as a reader to go, okay, I can implement some of Phil's strategies and know that I'm heading down the right path. So, good stuff. You talked about the human side of things there. So I'm guessing you're one of these people who suggests that automation on social there's no room for automation on social. Would that be correct?
Well, I'm going to say mostly. And by that, I mean, if you have a conversation that is really awesome and you want to share it over and over again, reminding yourself to re-cue that, I think that's okay. But automatically building leads using a prospecting tool, nope, not a fan of that at all. I'm not a fan of sending invitations that just have a value proposition in them and very little personalization, especially via some scraper that's going to go out and not even look at someone's profile. Nope, not a fan of that. And I'm certainly not a fan of anyone who doesn't actually listen to the responses that people give if they're in your, let's call it in your funnel, right? If you ask me a question and I give you a response, then I expect that you're going to respond to my response. I mean, that's part of the deal today. And so what I find interesting is so many people do this and it just doesn't work. I mean, Mark, I'll share just one today that's especially interesting. Two people did not even look at my profile. Didn't even look at my profile. Here's one. Hi, I see you came up as a recommended connection here on LinkedIn. It'd be great to connect if you're open to it. Thanks. Okay. Well, why? I don't see that.
Yeah.
I look at her headline, nothing there. I have that one. And then this one actually is clear that this is automation gone wrong. Hello. As an HR leader, you may be curious as to why an IT executive coach and advisor is reaching out to connect with you. I'm looking to connect with HR leaders in hopes of following and learning from you as to how I can have more of an impact on IT diversity staffing trends. If you're listening to my intro, did you hear anything in there that says that I'm an HR leader or have ever worked in HR? I did not. Why would you send that to me? I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense. That's likely someone hit a button, you paid someone or you paid some tool to just rip through all the people that came up in the search. Your search is wrong. And then it sends that message and you didn't even look at my profile to determine, is that a real person? So absolutely, that is automation gone completely wrong. And I definitely do not recommend that because there's nothing about that says, yep, I should connect to that person because they really seem to know what they're talking about.
And how much damage has that person done to their first impression and their brand in your eyes? It's going to be really difficult to undo that. Even if it was a genuine mistake. It doesn't sound like it was, but I mean, there's so much hard work for them now to try and turn that impression around. It's incredible. I asked this question about automation to just about everybody I have on the pod, and I haven't found too many supporters so far, to be frank.
Yeah, well, you don't get any quality. I mean, that's the thing. You might get a high number. And I'll tell you, Mark, I have tested automation about 2 years ago. I did absolutely test automation because I wanted to see, because I've always been against it. I mean, I lead with my heart. I lead as a human being every time. And I'm like, well, I see these people, they're just banging out connections. And I'm like, well, maybe there's something to it. Maybe if one of my customers asked me for that, I should at least be able to not just say that I don't like it because I don't like it because I don't think it's human, but let's test it out. So I tried some automation, and I have to tell you, it did not work. I did not get anyone who actually engaged in a conversation with me. That's not to say that they didn't accept my connection request, but they certainly didn't ever engage in conversation. Well, connections are useless without conversations. If I have your email address, that just means that you now have mine, which means now you can add a rule that says add everything from phil@philgerbyshak.com to your Bitbucket and throw it in spam. Well, that's not helpful. It doesn't help my business, and that certainly doesn't help yours. So I did try it, like I said, for about 90 days. I did make a bunch of connections, but I certainly didn't make any connections, and I certainly didn't have any conversations, and I certainly didn't lead to any conversions. So yes,
Yeah.
I can say those don't work.
Yeah. So look, something I'm really excited about is this whole move. And you started the conversation, quite a few minutes ago when you talked about quality, having good quality conversations. I think you said that right at the very start of your first H, which was human. And I'm a big fan. I'm really excited about what feels like a movement towards better quality rather than quantity. So it feels like we're making that transition away from, how can we send out 1,000 emails? How can we send out 200 connection requests? How can we, at least in my world, it feels like that move, and I'm excited by that. I think that gives us a lot more space to have high quality conversations and high quality interactions with our clients and our prospects. So that's good to hear. So with your connection, can I ask, Phil, with your connection strategy, do you connect with as many people as possible? Do you build it, wide and narrow, or do you wide and broad, or do you go quite deep?
So yeah, so I definitely try to go deep. I mean, I do connect with just about everybody who looks like they're in sales, which seems kind of funny because knowing that many of them will try to sell me, I still want to connect with them. I connect with my peers, absolutely. But here's my strategy, if you will. If I'm accepting a connection request, because I only do very strategic outbound, and we can talk about that next. But my inbound strategy is this: first, they have to be a human, which means they need a complete profile. They need a profile picture. They need a headline. They need an about section. They need to look like either they can help me or I can help them. I'd like to see that they maybe have, a few connections in common with me, not just loose connections, but people that I actually really know. And potentially, if they were ever served in the military, because I was in the Navy and I also served in the Army National Guard, I believe in helping my brothers and sisters who served as well. So those are typically the people that I accept an inbound from. If you're not in that and you send me a personal connection request and say, hey, I heard you on the Boss podcast, yeah, I'd probably accept your connection request because I know that you actually heard me on the Boss podcast. So anybody who proves that they're human, I'm going to accept into my network. So it's a little bit broader, but it's very deep in sales and very deep in social selling and very deep in people that I believe can add value to my life and that I can add value to theirs.
That's a great way of describing exactly how you've got that structured. A couple of things I want to ask. Thank you very much for serving, Phil. That's great. I'm also ex-military here in Australia, so it's good to be connected to another vet. Good man. And the second thing I wanted to say is I've actually changed my connection strategy very recently. I was a big fan of connecting primarily with salespeople inside my region because of the ability for me to be able to influence them in relation to sales training. So, like might fly to Singapore from Australia or to New Zealand, but I probably wasn't connecting with a lot of people outside of those regions. What's happened in the last 90 days is I now find that I'm training on Zoom all over the world. So I've had to change my mindset around connecting with people from just our region to okay, now I'm now connecting with people that are sales focused. So that was always my strategy, but it was a bit more geographically based. So I was deliberately trying to keep it tight. but now that things have changed, I've had to reassess. So interesting. So Phil, we've got 3 I's. We've done the 3 H's. Would you like to give us some information about your I strategy?
Sure, sure. So I'm like I mentioned in my before, my outbound strategy is a little bit different than my inbound strategy. And first, of course, they have to be someone that I'd want to talk to, right? I'm looking for maybe people that host podcasts because I like to learn from people who have podcasts. I connect. I'll look for VPs of sales or VPs of sales training. Again, I want to have conversations with them. I want to learn more about how they're doing their business. And I certainly am looking to connect with other C-level executives, have conversations with them to see what they're doing, as well as any authors or speakers or anybody that I think would be a good fit for my podcast, which I'll be launching in August, called Inside Sales Show. So that'll be coming out soon. With that, I believe that there are 3 I's that you have to use in order to connect with just about anybody. The first I is in common. People like what's in common. It gives us something to talk about besides ourselves. So I find that in common is an easy connection strategy, and most people will actually accept your connection request. So what's in common? Well, first it could be people. So Mark McInnes and I, we are connected. We're friends. I like Mark. Mark likes me. If I see that you're connected to Mark, I will likely either if your profile looks sketchy, I'll ask Mark, hey Mark, how well do you know this person? But if not, I'll probably accept them as a connection request because I respect Mark. So that's in common. It could be, did we both serve in the military, Mark? Thank you for your service as well. If you served, right, that's in common. So I'm going to mention that in that. I'm going to, again, if I see that you're connected to Mark, I'm going to ask how well you know him. What is something about this person that might be of interest to me, so that I can share that, or something of interest to them, so I can, again, share that in common. So people, background is of interest as well. Did we work in the same industry? Maybe go to the same school? Did we have a similar job once? So that's in common. Or it could be all the way at the bottom of the profile. It could be an influencer, right? I could see that you follow someone that I think is particularly smart, and we could have a conversation about that. And I might mention that in my connection request. From there,
Yep.
the second I is interested or interesting. So this is where I'm going to ask you a question about your profile. I'm going to see something maybe that you posted, maybe that I don't necessarily agree with or that I don't understand. I'm going to ask a question about it, not in a challenging way, but just to learn more and to understand more. So that's going to be interested. Or interesting could be the fact that, I might share something. Maybe we're opposite in something. Could be that, you like playing video games and I really enjoy pinball. So I might talk to you about that, right? I might mention, hey, I see you play video games and I like pinball. What's your favorite video game? You can make it about them, be interesting, again, a little bit interested. And then last but not least, and this is the best way actually to connect to C-level executives. It's the best way to connect to people that seem like they're all business on any social platform. And that is to use the insight tactic. So insight means something that you know about their job, about their industry, or about their organization that they might not know. Find some insight that you can share with them and be willing to share that, whether or not that you actually do business with them. So a typical insight might be, hey, Mark, I see that you're in the training industry. And did you know that 37.4% of statistics are made up on the fly? Well, we should have a conversation about that, right? I've got more statistics that I made up, just like that one. Let's have a call, right? So that's insight. So I try to share one of those 3 I's, and typically that means that I'll be able to connect with virtually anyone. And the people that I coach and the folks that I train, they absolutely find the same, because if you can find something in common, we can find a connection. If you can remark about something that you're interested in that's interesting to them, that can be a great connection. Or if you can offer some insight, almost like maybe a light challenger sale, that can be really helpful as well. So if you focus on those 3 I's, I really believe you can connect to virtually anyone.
Yep. And it's so much better than what most people are doing right now. When you first said in common, it just made me think about all of those connection requests that we get that say exactly that. Hey, Phil, let's connect. I see we've got a bunch of people in common, connections in common. Why does that one not work for you?
Well, it's not specific enough. right? I want to know who it is. I mean, I'm blessed that I have a great big network. I've got almost 15,000 people on LinkedIn. I've got 20,000 on Twitter. I've got 5 or 6,000 on on Facebook. I've got a couple thousand on Instagram. Who who do you see that's in common? Why is
Yeah.
that person of interest to you? I mean, be specific. Let me know. I mean, otherwise, especially if you don't take the time to look at my profile, and I get a notification if you look at my profile, that's a good thing. I want to know that you're actually interested because it tells me I care enough about you, even before we do business, that I want to research you and find out more about you and see what makes you tick. If you can't even do that and you just leave that generic, I'm going to think you're a bot. And actually, often, Mark, what's funny is I'll respond to that and say, hey, John, thanks for your connection request. Who specifically in common would it be that you know so well? We should talk about him or her. And then I get
Yeah.
radio silence. They never
Yeah.
respond because they used some automation, or worse, there's some Russian bot that got hacked and is now using LinkedIn to sway election results or something, right? I mean, it's just horrible. So again, that's where human matters. If it, when in doubt, personalize specifically, because the more specific you can be, the more opportunity there is for me to see your humanity, which means the more opportunity that I'm going to say yes to your connection request.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that barrier to changing it from I see we've got a whole bunch of people in common to hey, I see we're both connected to Mark and Phil. Those guys are pretty cool. Let's connect. It's so much. It's not. It's literally 20 seconds worth of work, right?
That's right.
And you're gonna start that relationship on such a better footing than what you would by using a generic connection request or just trying to slide in under the door unnoticed, which I never really get. By the way, like why would what's the use of being in someone's network if they don't know you that you're there?
Yeah,
But
I don't understand that either. It's fascinating because here's the thing, gang. So if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, geez, I should be super cautious about who I connect to. No. You don't have to worry about that. I mean, you can give them one strike. You can always disconnect and block them. But here's the thing: anybody that sneaks in, it's not like you get to see my connections contact info. All you get to do, even though my network is open, you could name drop me and say, hey, Mark, I see that Phil is connected to you, and therefore we should talk. But if you're a total idiot, well, that's not going to help you anyway, because Mark is going to come back to me and say, hey, Phil, how well do you know idiot? And I'm going to say, not at all. And then Mark's going to go back and not accept your connection request. I mean, this really isn't that hard, gang. Just take the time. If you target enough and you target well and you know what your value is and you know how to connect, well, doggone it, you can connect to virtually anybody in your network that you could possibly connect with because you can add value to their lives. And most people, the reason they won't connect to you is not because you don't exist in their mind, it's because you haven't demonstrated any darn value. So take the time to demonstrate some value first. I call this value over volume. Really important every time. Add value before you turn up the volume. With that, you can connect again to virtually anybody by being more specific.
well, there's some awesome takeaways just there, and I think that might be our 20-second grab, Phil, for the podcast. That was awesome, very very nice. So you've got 15,000 connections. Just a question out of the blue: like, did you spend much time maintaining that network, or once you're in, sort of thing? Like, do you do much maintenance, so to speak? Do you drop people out? How does that work?
I don't prune many people. I do watch my feed. I do change occasionally, from top to recent. I want to see if people are doing that. And as I get connection requests of people who I see we have in common, I look and I'm like, boy, that person looks like a spammer, but I have 13 people in common with them. Who are those 13 people? If they all are looking like spammers as well, I'm going to totally remove them. I also remove people on their birthdays, Mark. Did I ever tell you this one?
No,
Yeah. So if it's
tell
your
me.
birthday and we've never had a conversation and your profile looks like someone that I could never help or that could never help me, happy birthday to you. You're no longer my connection on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Wherever I see your
Hold on a
birthday.
second. So when so that I turned those notifications off, the birthday
Hmm.
notifications. So you leave that on, and then that gives you the opportunity to have a look at those profiles on their birthday because you get a notification, hey, it's Mark's birthday, and then you can then that's your opportunity to either reach out or disconnect. I
That's
love
right.
it.
Yep. Yep. And with that, right? So if I do know somebody, like today are three people in my network's birthday, three people's birthdays. If I know them, I actually pick up the phone and call them and wish them a happy birthday. Or I'll record a quick video greeting and say, hey, hope you're doing well. It's your birthday. Hope you're having a great day. And then if I didn't get them, what it does then is then in a week or two, I call them back if I didn't get them and I say, hey, so is your birthday. What'd you do? It's a great opener. And here's the thing, it often leads to business. Because, right? Because here's the thing, once you're like, oh, well, what a nice guy. Well, what are you working on? What's new? Well, if there's something I can help you with, let me know. Or, hey, I just released a new book. What are you working on? Oh, a new book? What's that book about? And we have a conversation. I just launched a new course. Let's talk about that. Oh, really? Oh, great. That's a sales conversation. So, yeah, Mark, turn on your birthday notifications, man. Not only can you disconnect from your network, but you get more inbound sales conversations because think about it. Anybody who takes the time to wish you a happy birthday, even if it's the generic happy birthday that LinkedIn lets you do, even if it's that, clearly is thinking about you enough that if you pick up the phone and call them, you pick up Skype and you call them, you set a Zoom meeting with them, and all you say is, I'd like to talk to you about why you wished me a happy birthday. I'm really grateful for that. That's super cool. If you,
See, man, this is why you're a superstar. The first thing I'm going to do when I leave here is going to turn my notifications on. I'm tempted to do it now, right now, while I'm standing in front of my computer. Mate, that's a great strategy, mate. That's fantastic. I love it. So, something I wanted to ask you at the start, but I was so excited I forgot. What got you started in the social thing in the first place, Phil?
well, so I got started because about 16, 17 years ago, I inherited a Rolodex. For those of you who don't remember Rolodex, it was a spinny thing that contained a ton of business cards. I inherited a Rolodex because I got promoted to be VP of IT at a financial services company, and I didn't open anything in the Rolodex. And a year later, when I needed something, I went to the Rolodex, and nobody's phone number or email address was correct.
Oh,
So I'm like, boy, if only I could find this person. I need help. So I went to our friend Google and put in their name. And wouldn't you know it, the first thing that shows up is LinkedIn. I did this 5 times in a row and I realized, maybe I should be on LinkedIn too. So I went on LinkedIn and I sent them a connection request. Hey, Mark, it's been a while. In fact, it's been forever because we've never talked. But now I'm looking for what you do. So if you'd like to do business with me, please accept my connection request and let's have a conversation. Here's my phone number. They would accept the connection request, they would call me, and we'd be LinkedIn connections. Really simple. So that's how I got started. I also got started because Fast Company, how it was called, the Company of Friends, and Heath Rowe was the guy that was in charge of Company of Friends, and he was actually my very first LinkedIn connection because I didn't believe, of course, that LinkedIn worked. So I was connected to one person probably for quite some time until I did that search through my Rolodex and found absolutely nobody active, but everybody using LinkedIn.
wow, that's a terrific story. It's not that dissimilar to Bryn Tillman. Actually, she talks about wanting to get inside someone's Rolodex at one point. So yeah, there you go. That's fantastic. So couple of questions in closing, Phil. I feel like we could talk all day, so I'm going to have you come back and share some more strategies on another pod, if that's okay. Um, like what do you think's happening in social land right now? Is social media space for business, people like you and I and salespeople getting better, or have we seen the best of social strategies such as LinkedIn and social selling? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think in some ways the good old days of social selling are done because there's a lot of people on it now. We see more and more and more people on it, and a lot of this automation has actually driven people off the platform into believing that the platforms are useless, which means the accidental connections that many used to get, that they used to count on, that they used to tout, the accidental 3 million views of a post that was totally stupid that they ripped off from somebody else, that's gone. So if that's what you're looking for, yep, the good old days are gone. But if you're looking for authentic people, if you're looking for real conversation, I don't think we're even there yet. And I say that because, Microsoft bought LinkedIn a couple of years ago, and they have not fully unlocked the integration between Microsoft and LinkedIn. I fully expect that within the next 24 months, that Microsoft and LinkedIn will be so integrated that in order to sign into any Windows machine, that you will need a LinkedIn account. If that's the case, every executive on the planet will have to have a LinkedIn account if they use a Windows machine. Well, if that's the case, then for social selling, we're going to see more executives, which another way of putting that is more decision makers on the platform. That's a very, very good thing for all of us. If you're social selling, if you have value before you add volume, if you actually use the 3 H's of being human, being helpful, and being humble, and if you use the 3 I's leading with insight, then in common specifically, and then interested and interesting finally. If you're willing to do that, I think the golden age is yet to come.
Mate, I love the way you tied that back to the 3 H's and the 3 I's. That was very, very sharp. Well done. If reps who are listening to this can only go and do one thing, or typically people take one thing from each conversation, what would you like that one thing to be?
Well, I'm going to cheat. I have to give you 2 because you have to start with a good profile on whatever platform you're on. If you don't have a good profile, it's not going to work. So start there, improve your profile. But then what you really have to do, and this is what any sales professional must do, and that is take action. Get off of your profile and stop expecting that people are going to find you on LinkedIn, and instead go interact with the people that you want to do business with. Go have conversations with them. Comment on their posts. Send them business first. Add value before you add volume. Get connected with the right people. Follow first. Keep adding value. And that's what you need to do with the right people. Not with everybody, but with the right people. And that's how, if you're a sales professional, that you can grow your business using LinkedIn or any social network.
Absolutely roll gold advice there, Phil. That's just awesome. Mate, thank you for coming onto the podcast. How would you like people, or would you like people to get in contact with you? Can you give us what's your thoughts around there? Do you want people to reach out, or?
Absolutely. I'd love to connect. I'd love to help you. So if you're listening to this, you're like, hey, this guy's made some sense. What I'd like you to do is go to LinkedIn and search for Gerbyshak. That's Gerbyshak. My name is Phil. My brother Paul has 7 connections, likely. He's a school teacher in the Seattle-Tacoma district. Please don't send him a connection request, but you're welcome to send me one. Tell me you heard me on the Boss Podcast, and I'd be happy to be your friend and your connection request and help you if I can.
Yeah, Phil's pretty easy to spot. He's got those fantastic orange glasses typically. I hope you've still got those, don't you, Phil?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 18 pair of cool glasses, Mark.
Whoa. Okay, there you go. So, Phil, thanks so much for coming on to the Boss Podcast. You truly are a best of social selling, absolute guru. Listeners, thanks very much for listening to this week. Make sure you go and turn your notifications for your birthdays back on. I'm certainly going to be doing it, and I look forward to speaking to all of you next week. Thanks from Mark. We're out. Bye. Thanks, Phil.
Sure, buddy.